I want to know. We're live. We are live. I want to know whenever I go live, there's always one person I think that gets immediately notified. So whoever the first person is here, chime in and let me know who it is. I'm curious to see who the first. I'll bet it's the same one every time, and I bet the person that gets notified is the one that I see on there. So I want to know who it is. But tonight we want to talk about small block Chevys and blowers. Braden, is that you? Are you the first one that's always here? Small block Chevys and blowers. More specifically, the testing that I did, I ran a small block 400, which was actually not a factory block. It was a Speedmaster block. And we built up a 400 and tried different cams in it and different heads and all kinds of stuff. We had airflow research heads and we had trick flow heads on it. I think we put dart heads on it also. We tried all kinds of stuff. We tried different cams from Bullet Racing. We ran like blower cams and what would be blower cams and NA cams. And by the way, we just kind of start there that, hey, look, when we put a dedicated blower cam in there and then we put a dedicated NA cam, those are just designations. They're just two different cams. And so when we put the two different cams in there, one of them made a lot more power than the other, and one of them made a lot more power than the other, or a substantial amount, enough of an amount that you could see the difference there. One of them made more power NA, and so it also made more power under boost. And it was not the blower cam. It was the NA cam, because the NA cam was a bigger cam, and it had more duration and stuff. And it did exactly what you'd expect a cam like that. If you didn't have the designations on them, if you didn't have the names on them, a blower cam or an NA cam, and you just looked at the cam specs, you'd go like, this cam is bigger than this cam. And so we would expect it to make more power, at least at the peak. Maybe it'll trade power down low, and that's exactly what it did. And it did that NA, and it also did that under boost. And not that there aren't, not that you can't get a dedicated blower cam. That's a real thing. But it still comes down to what it does NA, which one of those makes more power, that kind of thing. But we've gone over that a whole bunch. But the cool test is running this thing on E85. So we ran it on race gas, so that we ran it on 118. So it was back when we had Rocket brand stuff. And so we ran it on 118. It worked good. And the reason that we did that is so that I could run the amount of timing and boost that we wanted to run to make reasonable power. I think we were making 800 or something like that. And so we could run that, and we have two carburetors on top of the blower. So we have charge cooling. There's no intercooler there, but we do get charge cooling with that kind of blower, with a positive displacement blower. The carburetors are on top. It's drawing fuel in. The fuel has, cooling capacity basically. And so we get charge cooling. And so on the other side where the boost is in the manifold, built up in that lower manifold, the lower short runner manifold, typical of those Roots positive displacement blower things. On the other side of that, I think we ran 11 or 11 and a half pounds. Were it not for the carburetors being there, the charge temperature at that boost level would have been a lot hotter than it was otherwise. So the cooling is obviously welcome and is a beneficial thing. With the E85, we get even more of that. We also get the change in caloric content with the E85. We are supplying a lot more E85. So we have more energy. We are more potential energy. We are making more power, definitely. We made about 50 more horsepower with the E85. We could run full timing with the 118, and at the boost level that we were at, and the timing level that we're at, we could run all of the timing on. So I don't think we even changed the timing with the E85, because we didn't necessarily, the thing was already running all the time, and we had race gas in it. So, but the timing is worth like 40 or 50 horsepower. It was quite a bit. And it was worth more power everywhere, like immediately on the roll in, which is like, let's say 3,000, 6,500 or something. It was there the whole time. Then we just swapped on some E85 carburetors on top of it. Luckily, they don't have to be blower carburetors because they're just on top. They're just being drawn through. Now, if you wanted it to be ideal, they could be draw through blower carburetors, which Holly and Quick Fuel and different people make. But we didn't worry about that. All we worried about was, are we getting the right air fuel? And we were, in this case. We could just do a little bit of jetting. And honestly, I think that they were really good out of the box. It's not surprising at all. The Holly carburetors that we've run on blower stuff, we run blower carburetors on a blower like this. The jetting is really, really good. If we just put them on and it worked. And it worked at all the different boost levels. After we, if you throw a couple jets at it or whatever, and you change the pulley, we didn't have to do anything to it. It drew more air in, it drew more fuel in, just did the thing that, did the thing that you would expect it to do. And it worked very, very well. And honestly, when we could, play with this and try to nitpick stuff, but going from 11.5 to 11.6 or 11.7 just isn't, it's just not even worth playing with. Just if it's at 11.5 or whatever, that's just fine. Particularly on 85, or if you're running race gas. Now, if you're wanting to run this kind of thing on pump gas and take timing away from it, you might want to have it be a little bit richer, would be fine. But this was a cool blower test, and this blower was big enough where we could have run a lot more power. We didn't turn this thing all the way up, I don't think. At least on this test, we didn't. Later on, we may have gone for more power. We ran a Pro Charger on this thing also, and it made quite a bit more power. But the E85 test was cool, and it's nice when you change the fuel and you get that kind of gain. It's cooler because it is cooler. It has enough octane and it makes more power. So it's just like, this is perfect. And if you're having to buy blower carburetors anyway, and just to get the E85 carburetors, it works good. Now, I know if you don't have E85 around you, that makes life more difficult. That's actually not what I wanted to talk about, but that is part of this. The thing that I want to talk about, and this goes for all of the things that I test. It goes for the the LS stuff that I've been doing, the 5.3s and the 6.0s and the turbos and the cams and all that stuff, is that whenever I test something, what happens is, like we did the single-sided turbo thing recently, and whatever we test, and nitrous is a real good example of this. Whatever we test and whatever we run, that becomes the new norm. That becomes a new standard thing. I'll tell you what I mean. So if we run, let's say we've got a 5.3, we run a 5.3, we've got a low buck truck camshaft in it, which are back in stock, by the way. So go get them. They're a good deal. But we're running something like that. We got a junkyard 5.3, springs in it, got a low buck truck camshaft on it. We got a carbureted intake manifold on it. We're just running a plate nitrous system, or it could even be a fuel injected one. We're running a fogger nozzle with one fuel and one nitrous line going to it, and got jets in there, and we supply the nitrous in there. And we make runs, and I show guys the dyno graphs. Okay, here's the motor. It made, 450 horsepower. And then we added 100 shot, and then we added 150 shot to it. So we went from 450 to 550 and then to 600. Okay, great. And that's awesome. That's good. Most people, or some people, would look at that and go, "Oh, that's really cool." A lot of people look at that and go, "Okay, that's cool, but can I run 200? Can I safely run 200? Can I safely run 250?" Because now that I've shown them that we did that and we got away with it, now that's not the NA motor is now not the beginning anymore. The motor with the nitrous is now the beginning, and can I get away with it? We see this in everything. You see this with nitrous. You see this with boost. All the testing that I did recently on the turbo stuff. Okay, we ran 15 pounds. We ran 15 pounds. We made 920. Okay, but can I get away with running 20 pounds? It's a big jump in boost, because that's a lot of power. I mean, if you're making 30 or 40 horsepower per pound of boost, and you have enough turbo like that G42, which we do, and you have enough to support that, all of a sudden another 5 pounds can be 150 or 200 horsepower. It's a lot. It's a big change. But can I run that? And here's the thing. Here's the downside. Like, a person that would ask me something like that, can I run a 200 shot? Can I run a 250 shot? Can I run 5 more pounds of boost? Here's what they want. They want, okay, I ran it in my testing, got away with it, worked fine. The motor runs like that 5.3, 700 pulls on or something. It's worked flawlessly. It's always worked great. Every time I go back to it, it works great. It makes the same power. All that works great. That's what they want. They want that. But they don't want that with the 450 horsepower and the 150 shot on it. They want it with a 250 shot. They want it to keep working great and not have any problems and keep being reliable. But they got greedy, and now they want the 250. So it's okay to want that. That's how we get better. That's how we go faster. All that's fantastic. But just like trying to run a unopened motor with no ring gap, that's all fine. That's all well and good. You can do it. Yeah, talk to people. Oh, I've run my car for 25 years and I ran 300 pounds of boost and I run it on 87 octane. And you got guys telling stories out there, whatever they're telling, and it works and it works perfect. Don't ever even worry about it. That's fine. You can be that guy. You can be the guy that doesn't put ring gap in your car. You could be the guy that runs the 250 shot on your junkyard motor. You could be the guy that adds 5 pounds of boost. You could be that guy. But what you don't get to be is you don't get to be the guy that does that and has stock reliability. You need to be the guy that decides, okay, this is what Richard did. This is where he went. I'm going to go here and I'm going to take responsibility for my actions. That's what I tell people about the ring gap thing. Yeah, you can run like that. You can go run an unopened motor where we don't know what the ring gap is. Is it 13? Is it 23? Is it 33? We don't know because we never opened it up. You can do that. You can do it with the stock head bolts, the stock head gaskets. You don't know if the head gasket on a junkyard motor was already bad to begin with. You don't know if it's almost bad and on the next hit it's going to be bad. You don't know any of that. But and it's okay to take that chance and do that. We did that on that 5.3. I ran a whole bunch of stuff. I ran boost a bunch of times. But every time I did it, I'm sitting there in the dyno going, okay, why? Okay, that's like 7 pounds or whatever. We ended up making like 750 or whatever. Turns out that we already had ring gap in it. But if I didn't have ring gap in it, and while I was doing all this testing, I broke a ring line, broke a piston. Okay, that's on me. I take responsibility for that. I got to take that motor off the dyno now. I got to spend all this time and this effort and this money, and now got to take it apart and fix it. But that's not what people want. What they want is, I want to do what you did, which was cool, but I'm going to be cooler. But I'm not going to take responsibility for me trying to be cooler. I want to be cooler, and I don't want to have any consequences. You have consequences. You definitely have the potential to have consequences. And the farther that you go toward the certainty principle where you are certainly going to have consequences. And if you do that and you accept that, dude, you're my kind of person. If you do that and then complain about it, that's not my kind of people. My kind of people go, yeah, I'm doing it. I'm running anyway. I'm putting it on full send. And then you blow it up and you're like, yep, but I live my life 9 seconds at a time or whatever. And that's me. And I'm all about that. And the next one that I do, I'm going to do exactly that again. And I'm going to keep going until I get away with it. That's all cool. As long as you're the guy that's taking it back apart, put a new motor in it, put a turbo on it, hopefully taking 2 degrees of timing out of it, maybe take out a couple of pounds of boost and run it again. As long as you're that guy, dude, you're my kind of person. Brandon, what's going on, guys? Todd, did you get your motor in? My 5.3 ended up being cracked. I haven't emailed you yet. Okay. Richard, punch like that. I have the 6 liter. You got it installed today. Okay, good. Are you going to run it NA and drive it around and make sure that it's okay and then put the turbo on? No, you're not going to. You're going to put the turbo on, right? Low and small, but you're my kind of guy because you take responsibility and take it out and make it work. Low and small block 400, my kind of topic. It was cool. And it was a big, like I said, it was an 871 too. It wasn't even a 671. Wales is in the house, the land of dragons. Bolting on my 7875 tomorrow. There you go. Is the 400 engine in a Pontiac Formula or small block Chevy or big block Chevy? Is the 400 cubic inch engine in a Pontiac Formula a small block Chevy or a big block Chevy? It's neither one of those. If you got a 400 in a Pontiac, that's a Pontiac 400. I don't think you ever would have got in a Formula Firebird. I don't think there's anything else. There was no big block or small block in there until later, and there would never been a big block in there from the factory that I know of. There would have been a small block in there later on, but it wouldn't have been a 400. It would have been a 305 or a 350 later on in the TunePort era. And before that too, the carbureted stuff, but would have all been small block stuff. 425 bore. It was the best small block to run. Bore, easy power, all motor. Okay. I found one on Facebook Marketplace. It's a beautiful Formula 400. Yes, that's a Pontiac 400. Slap some AFR 225s with a solid roller on it. That 400, you can spin them up on RPM for sure. Richard, my 1500 horsepower build is going to run GT45s, but now you're going to be offering turbos. So what would you recommend from your selection? I thought that you were talking about running more power than that. If you're running more power than that, the other turbos, the GTX 3584 RS turbos, will make more than the GT45s do, and they will be more responsive. But if you want to go to 2000, which I don't know if you're going to do that, then you need two G42s. KR, we do need a poll, right? Are you the guy that tries to sneak an extra 2 psi out of your 871 blown small block? Are you that guy? Scrolling. I'm going back in time. Sean, do you have a private airport around you? I don't know if they'll have E85 there. I like older muscle cars. Those are good. Aviation fuel is a great alternative. It's not the same as E85 though. And the aviation fuel is not going to be cheap, right? Love some big roots blower, small block Chevys. I want one, so I came across a Pontiac 400, 12,000, great shape. Brian, what year is that car? 85 will not achieve its potential on an engine that does not have its boost or compression ratio adjusted to go all drunk frat boy on that engine. Okay. So you want to be able to utilize the 85? Yeah, I've run the naturally aspirated 5.3, the L33 on E85. It doesn't really seem to do anything. It does like it when it's boosted though. Camaro's back on the road. Snazzed up LS1. New rear end gears. Nice. What gears did you put in it? Put my engine back in the truck today. Thankfully, some local stations carry E85 now. That'll come in handy when I finish the turbo build. Nathan, what's going on? Hope someone might be able to answer this long-winded question. Go ahead, Shadow Ops. Hit us. 900 is cool, but 1200 is even better. Exactly. That's a big... and that's what it is. That's the range I get. I want to make between 15 and 1800 horsepower, but those are way different. Poll, how much horsepower can you make with the 85 if maximized for that fuel than a similar engine for 92 octane? Opinion, 45% more power. So how much more horsepower can you make compared to 92? Okay. I moved to Penn. Where did you move, Todd? Are you not in SAC anymore? Is ring gap necessary on a 544 valve? If you're running boost on it, it is. Ring gap is necessary on any boosted motor. I just read the info on the car guy says it's a 400 big block, 71 Pontiac. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, a guy could have put a big block in there and, taken the Pontiac out and put a big block in there. It would be a 402, which is a 396, but it's overboard. Somebody could have put that in there. That car did not come originally with a big block or a small block Ford or a small block Chevy. It came with a Pontiac. Ring gap is necessary on everything, even NA motors. You got to have enough for NA motors. Moving to Shingle Springs. Okay. 2007 Silverado. JF7 brakes, big rotors, drums out back, left pads worn faster than right. Could be caliber, primary. Yeah, check your slider mechanism on the brake. It could be sticking, so you're really only pushing on one side. Max speeding rod wants to send me some coilovers, but my project car already has coilovers. I think I delineated the exact parametric maximization, but I have to admit, yes, a roots blower motor will gain far more benefit from that. Evaporating alcohol. So you think the change would be 45%? So you're taking into account the extra boost that you can run, the extra timing you can run, and then the extra power that you get just because it's that fuel. And you think it's going to be 45% gain over 92? Richard, I have a question. I'm about to pull the trigger on the G42. I'm wondering if I can decap my injectors and have enough fuel. Will it 239, 246 be fine? That's what's in it. Yeah, you can use that. Necessary to have that much damage at any LS. It's not necessary. Decapping the injectors, I do not recommend. You can, guys have done it and it will work. But if you do 8 of them, they will not be even. You'd have to take those, decap them, have them flowed at more than just like static, and see how close the flow matches. And if it's not matched through the whole thing, which usually happens, usually you have to do a bunch of them, and then you pick ones that are the same, and then the guys sell those. But just doing yours is probably not going to work. From Ponderosa and Shingle Springs. So is it officially a big block or a small block? Are you talking about whether Pontiacs are not? If you talk to a Pontiac guy, it's nothing. It's neither one of those. Pontiacs don't technically have big blocks and small blocks. That's a Chevrolet thing. That's what the Pontiac guys will tell you. To me, a 455 is a big block, and a 350 or a 326 or the ones below that are small blocks. The 400's like right in that gray area. And the same thing with small block Chevys. They had a small block 400. They also had a big block 400. So it's not just like displacement designation. But if you're getting a Pontiac and it has a Pontiac in it and you're hanging around with Pontiac people, you probably will get corrected all the time if you call it a big block or a small block. And I get that all the time, and I still do it. Just like a 400M. I get comments like that all the time. It's not a 400M. It was never designated a 400M. It was only a 351M. No, I will call it a 400M from the time that I started calling it a 400M until forever. And the same thing with Pontiacs. A 455 Pontiac to me is a big block. So is a 428. So is a 421. So is every other size that they made that was big like that. 6 Big Bang was epic, but it was sad that you couldn't keep going until there was parts on the floor. Yep, I agree. Took your advice. Did not change to the sloppy stage 3. Put the truck plus cam. Starting over on my tune. 4 pounds of boost. I think you'd be much happier with that with the truck plus cam than you would be with the sloppy stage 3. The sloppy stage 3, if it was NA, I might pick that if I wanted like lots of peak power, because that's a little bit bigger cam, but I wouldn't pick that for any boost. Gonna drive mine around without turbo for a bit, and then use the 3584s on the 544 valve, only 600 horsepower flex fuel. That'll be good. I like running at NA just to make sure that everything's working, it's happy, and get the tune right. I don't think anybody could be cooler than Richard. Oh, everybody is. Richard, turbo lawnmower. That would be cool. I actually wanted to do a smog pump lawnmower, but that would be more of a blower. 403 Ols. Had to do a pad slap yesterday. I'm gonna do pads on a friend of ours that's been giving rides to Owen almost his whole school life. That I'm gonna help them do brakes on their little Nissan. Unit 4 pounds of boost. This motor only wants 14 degrees of timing on 93, 10.7 to 1. Yeah, where are you drawing air? What's the temperature of the air going in there? Scrolling. Scrolling, scrolling. Still scrolling. Here we go. Okay, stock tubular headers backwards with 2 1/4 secondary with a stock X pipe all chopped up to fit the in front of the engine. Were there any Canadian Firebirds? I think that there were, right? Small block 400 block with 11 to 1 compression, cemented block on a 200 shot with race gas. And my buddy's 69 Camaro went low 10s with 10-inch slicks. Okay. Probably a big cam then. Did it have fuely heads on it, or did it have good heads on it? Could be a sticking caliper. Before replacing it, check the sliders for rust. Yeah. Yeah, you got to check a couple of things. Make sure that the caliper is working. But sometimes on the single-sided, like the single caliper deal that doesn't have pistons on both sides, the piston can get, seized up a little bit, but also the slider. So check both of those. 6.2 LS twin turbo size to make 1,000 wheel horsepower. If you want to do twins, do twin 2 of our GTX 3584 RS turbos. They'll go way beyond that, but on a 6.2, that would be good for that. It's on a Boss 290 engine, 1,000 cc injectors, stock is 400 horsepower, underdrive pulleys, manual upgrade. Yeah, that's single turbo territory. 78 Formula Firebird, 305 Chevy 2-barrel. Optional was a 350 L code small block for Quadrajet. Top dog was a 400 Pontiac. Pontiac 400 is different completely, or shares same architecture as a Chevy? No, a Pontiac is a completely different engine family. It's all different than the Chevy. And there are Pontiac guys here, so the Pontiac guys here will tell you how much better the Pontiac is than the Chevy. Good evening. I always enjoy your videos and all these tests. I have a question though. Have you ever tried to use a gas converted Detroit 671 or 871? I have not. I've never gotten one of those from, buying it online or anywhere. And I've never seen any in a wrecking yard. Trans Am at 403 Ols. Were they not in formulas? When did they start doing that? When did they start doing the 403 Ols? Yeah, 71 would have been definitely a Pontiac and not an Ols. The Ols wouldn't have been until mid 70s, right? Take some timing out of the 671. That might up the boost. Located in San Pedro. Okay, we have 85 all over. We even have a VP gas station that sells 109. That's nice. Question on boost reference regulator. I'm running 60-pound fuel pressure, 15 pounds of boost. When I'm at full boost, should my pressure be 75? Yes. If you have a reference going to the top of the regulator, the fuel pressure should go up at a 1-to-1 rate on most regulators. Should go up at a 1-to-1 rate with boost. Richard, did 400 also coming to Ford? Yeah, Ford made a 400, the 400M. I did remove the left caliper and clean the pins and put fresh grease on them. Okay. Shadow Ops, did you see when you took it apart, if you remember, did you see more wear on one side of the pad than the other? And did you see that on both calipers, the right and the left caliper? Was that consistent on both of them, or was it just happening on one of them? Randy 85, my E46 stock engine, just for giggles. There was no power gain, but the intake valves are spotless. Sometimes on real high compression stuff, the DI Gen 5 LT stuff gains power because it probably adds timing. Same thing with the Coyote. It seems to add power. Richard's Lord of the Ring Gaps. Penryn. I don't know. I never heard of that, Todd. 79 Formula Firebird had the optional 403 engine. Pontiac 400 save. Use only in Trans Am 4-speeds. I do recall seeing one 79 Formula 400 Pontiac 4-speed. Yeah, his is a 71. My heavy turbo Silverado ran a 14.3 at 103, 2.660 foot. At 10 psi, I was seeing a little knock at 12 degrees of timing. At 6 psi, I could run 16 degrees, and both times were similar. Do you know how much timing it was pulling? 4 psi should be a lot, even if you took timing out. Todd, is that question about the Nova for me? I didn't put a motor in the Nova, but Oliver did. You say an extra 2 psi or 20 psi. That's what the questions are like. Is ring gap necessary on total seal rings? Well, Total Seal makes conventional rings. Are you talking about their zero gap rings? I have the 5.7 LS right now, but have an aluminum 5.3 sitting in the stand. Nice. My theory is a 45% increase in power. I figure, hey, methanol will give you 100% more power. Why not 45%? You think methanol will give you 100%? 100% over gas? The ones we got were AC Delco, and the one I got in November was Reman. So this is what the ad said: 71 Pontiac Firebird Formula, big block, 400 cubic inch disc brakes. Well, he's probably calling it that. You should verify him with Brian. He's saying big block because people want to hear the name big block, 400. But just make sure that it's ask him whether it's a 400 Pontiac. Then you can disregard the big block thing. That doesn't matter. That's just somebody doing an ad. Oval port heads for our OG Chevelle frag boat Camaro. I want old school with an oval port. So what is your question, Stephen? He said Jessen's on 2.2 turbo Chrysler. I started taking the head off. I couldn't even turn the motor over by hand. Keep going. Yeah, my guess is it's probably rusted. I don't know where you got the motor from. Was it sitting outside or something? On the single bank turbo you recently did, will the engine wear unevenly over time? Is it harder to do since one side is boosted? Well, one side isn't boosted. The whole motor is boosted. Every cylinder has boost in it. All 8 cylinders do. What you have is, the only difference you have is you have back pressure on one side that's feeding the turbo, and you have no back pressure, or whatever the back pressure is in the header. There would be a little bit, but not very much. You'd have some, just a little bit. Let's even say you had none. So that would be the difference. But all the cylinders have boost in them. All the cylinders have the same air fuel ratio in them. Or all the cylinders have the same amount of fuel going into them. I would like to see what the air fuel is. I didn't run that on the other side. And if I do it again, I'm definitely going to check the air fuel on the other side. I know, look at Dan. Dan's got the snazzy profile pic. Shadow, there were Buick, small block and big block. Oldsmobile, small block and big block. It's my game name. Your gamer name for Star Wars Battlefront. Let's see here, man. We got a lot of questions here. Hey, dogs. Okay, here we go. I have a 509 small block 400. Okay. Eagle rotating assembly. It's a good build, or should I have got a dart block? I don't know I don't know how much power you're trying to make. You don't need a dart block for an NA combination. All cylinders are boosted. Yep, we went through that. They say all Pontiac V8 blocks are the same. Yeah, it's not true. The main journal size is different, right? Anybody know if a smog pump would flow enough air to be used as a fresh air anti-lag? I don't know how much is required for that. Inlet air temp is 90 to 110, depending on how many pulls I've done. KR, I've never gone to max of whatever the fuel octane would allow us to do. I've never gone max on a pump gas thing because I wouldn't, and I've never gone to the max of whatever would allow us to do. So I don't know what that answer is. Did we already discuss the K-Series Big Bang? We didn't discuss that tonight. Should be small cube Pontiacs, medium cubes, and big cubes. My farm small block had 2 brains. Yep. 40 overs, pushing the limit. Yeah. Porsche 930s used the smog bump for anti-lag. There's an SAE paper on it. Cool. The more I learned about cams, it seems like the LS6 cam would be excellent for boost. You could substitute any cam name in there, and it will be excellent for boost. Brakes are dual pistons, tons of torque, plants you in the seat. More valve lift is the high RPM power helper that costs you nothing on the lower RPM. I don't think that's an absolute. When we say always, it's never the case. And we say never, it's also never the case. Did somebody wants to know if Canadian Firebirds had Chevrolet engines? B&R, do you know if that's the case? What turbo for fast spool time T56 6-liter want to make 550 to 700 at the wheel? For 550, I would pick the smaller turbo. For 700, I would pick the bigger turbo. Smog pump reduced the lag by 500 RPM. And that was important for those early turbos too, because they were very low compression air-cooled motors, and they had a terrible manifold on them, and so they were not very responsive. '78 Trans Am 403 Olds, California spec engine. Impressed with test results on the 2 turbos. As much as the engine can safely handle on E85, horsepower goal as much as the engine can safely handle on E85. Well, then see, that's the thing. You don't get both of those. You don't get as much, but it's got to be safe. You don't get that. If you're gonna run 1,200 horsepower, you have to be ready to be responsible for that. I was looking at S300 66 millimeter. Okay. Let's say Richard's one of my favorite YouTubers alongside Zip Ties and Bias Plies. Do you guys watch Derek at Vice Grips? Thank you for answering my question. I'm currently running confusing for everybody if you talk about big block and small block Pontiacs. It's only confusing for Pontiac guys. Everybody else thinks that a 455 Pontiac is a big block, just like a 455 Buick is a big block, just like a 454 Chevy is a big block. Thank you for answering my question. I'm currently running a converted 671 that I did with a Volvo Penta Vortec 350 2-bolt. I'm running top 6 pounds of boost with dual 1405s, marine roller cam. Well, then if you're doing it, you should tell us about it, because that's why we're here, man. I'm curious. Is it working out? Is it good? Kind of want to try E85 in my 400 small block. I hear about it being corrosive. Like to run more timing in 91 octane with 11-to-1 compression of a small window for tuning at wide open throttle. It would definitely help if it's 11-to-1 and an iron-headed small block. Kimberly Jewell, what is your question about all of that? Maybe if you went metal to metal, did you put a bunch of heat in it and maybe it warped it or something? And Dodge had a 400 also. '71 Pontiacs. I like the 71s. I had a 70 and a half split bumper Camaro, and I like the 71s. I like the Trans Ams. Dog is making long distance barks. Yeah. Man, I'm trying to get down to all. I'm trying to get down and answer all the questions. There's just too many. Hydraulic roller 274. Tell me what the duration is at 50. That's what I need to know. EFI mid rise. Okay, flat tops. Okay. 10 psi, 12 degrees of timing. It was seeing 4 degrees of knock above 4,500, pretty much all the way to 62 in fourth gear on the back end of the track. Okay. Do you have cold air going to the turbo? And is it intercooled? Looking for a 68, 69 GTO or Le Mans to make a GTO clone. I want to make a nitrous one. Okay. I have some 68, 69 Le Mans or GTO parts that I'm selling for that young lady. Her husband passed away, unfortunately, and so I have a bunch of parts that he was putting together, including a Muncie 4-speed. Pontiac people tend to pretend the 301 never existed. EPA just removed all the emissions for diesels. I have a 99 Silverado, 862 head 5.3. Not trying to pull heads off if needed. Will the low buck truck cam work with stock lifters, push rods, rockers? Yes, it will. It will not work with stock springs, though. '71 Pontiac's clean. Those are good. Are you a weight reduction or a horsepower torque guy? Why do we have to choose? Got a Pro Touring Nova, and I'm torn. Would like lightweight, but already have a 350. I want to put an 871 on it. But if it's Pro Touring, you're not racing it. Why do you care about making it lightweight? It doesn't seem like they act like this in cold weather, but now that it's warming up, the lower boost, the more timing. Could you use compressed air for anti-lag? Yeah, apparently anything that you do to inject air in there is going to work. Not so relevant today, but likely the best hot rod features of Pontiac V8, like 455, swapping cylinder heads. Go from static compression of 7.6 to 13.5. The flat top pistons, all factory iron. So you're saying that there's a combination where you can just do a cylinder head change and change the compression by 6 points? There's no way that that's possible. Are you going from a 40 cc chamber to like 140? Or I shouldn't say there's no way that's possible. It seems like that's not accurate. If the Lubbock truck is the same as the truck Norris or Chupacabra, then NSR might be the solution. Might be the solution for what? Nitrous does work as anti-lag. Oldsmobile had a 400 big block in 64 or 65. Shopping for a car online. Canadian yes use Chevrolet V8s and Pontiacs. Do the forces on engine dyno equate to forces in chassis? Recently seen some high power output from 302 while on the dyno, assuming there's additional loads which in the chassis, block splits in the chassis. I don't know how they would be different unless you're maybe a torque plate would be different than grabbing it from the sides of the block. That could certainly be possible. And then maybe solid mounts versus rubber mounts could increase the load on a thin wall cast block, maybe. The other thing that somebody brought up is the angle of the intake bolts, relative to, kind of pulling to separate the head. I don't know. It's all like theoretical stuff. The 4.8 I have, I will make it into an iron L83 if the pistons are good, or L33. How does an engine dyno load an engine to make boost on a large turbo setup? Do you load more at the beginning and then let it rip once it's made boost, or ramp the loading in? No, it goes to full load. The dyno determines the load. You go to wide open throttle, you choose an RPM sweep range that you want. So let's say we go from 3,000 to 6,500. And so you load it at wide open throttle. The dyno applies the amount of load required for that power level to stay at that RPM, whatever that's required. You sometimes have to adjust the dyno to make that happen with the water flow and stuff. But it has a stationary load at 3,000 RPM, let's say, if we pick that RPM. And then you release it, and then it accelerates at a predetermined acceleration rate. 300 RPM per second is what we normally do. You could do it faster than that. You could do it slower than that. But it accelerates at a predetermined RPM rate. The reason, and this came up a lot with people who didn't understand what's going on, is that they're like, well, the bigger turbo, when you did your test, was better everywhere. Yeah, it is, because it had full boost. It wouldn't have that if you just nailed the throttle with both of those turbos. If you're out driving around and you just stomped on the gas, one of those turbos would be way more responsive than the other. And not surprisingly, one of them, let's say, is an 800 horsepower turbo. It's rated at 900, but let's say it's an 800 horsepower turbo. The other is a 1200 horsepower turbo. The smaller turbo there's no rocket science there that the smaller turbo would be more responsive. It definitely is going to be. We just didn't see it because of that artificial load that allows the thing. Because here's the thing about a turbo motor, like a two-step or whatever you're doing it, or some other kind of anti-lag, that when you roll it in, this would be like power braking it, but power braking it at like 3,000 RPM, but power braking it at wide open throttle. So what happens when we put more heat energy into the turbo? If it was limited in the amount of boost that it could make because of exhaust flow and heat energy, well, you start getting more and more. It starts putting in more boost, starts getting happier, and starts cycling itself. And all of a sudden, it's like, hey, look, I got all the heat energy, or I got all the exhaust energy that I need, and now good things are happening. I'm interested in a max effort roots blown small block. Have you done a build like that? No. You want to do that though? I'm all for that. Please let me know what happens. Had a troll Pontiac guys call it a big block. Yeah, that's true. It's like the 400M stuff. Man, I'm trying to get down there. I should stop talking. Okay, here we go. Always good to have a backup engine. 454 Pontiac Gen 6 or 454 Gen 6 is an awesome, and I'm a Pontiac guy. I'll never run 1200 horsepower because I like to drive on the street. There's no place for 1200 horsepower on the street. Plus, fully prepped 700 or Fords are too expensive to destroy. I like Derek. He's got a good sense of humor. Yep, from Vice Grips. Yeah. What cam would you recommend for an 84 350 Crossfire with TBI? An Edelbrock Performer, ceasefire, got to go. I don't know. I don't know how you're going to control that. I don't know how much camshaft you could put in it with your factory fuel injection if that's what you're running. My son's becoming more interested in automotive technology. Is there a vocational school that you recommend? You take some of the HP tuner. I think that's what it's called. What is the HP Academy? I think has Horsepower Academy, has stuff where he could learn a lot. I've been saying all along that 1200 horsepower is too much for a street car. Rotors had no sign of warpage. That's good. Got a Gen 6 big block. It's torn down and inspected, ready for build. May sell it or finish it. Could build it to your spec if anybody's interested. Nathan's got one. I want a clean 4-door Le Mans, unless you put a Lenco in it. I have an intercooler up front. The setup is rear mount turbo, so it's sucking fresh air from a. So it's. Are you saying WFO? So you're saying it's not sucking fresh air from under? Oh, under the bed. Okay. Okay. So it's getting ambient air, not under hood air. Your Geo have a high dollar trans fluid and light engine oil when you set out to do a record, or is the cost of those types of things not relevant for what you're hoping to accomplish? I don't know what you mean by high dollar trans fluid and light engine oil. It's a manual trans, so it's just going to have whatever fluid you put in a manual trans. We don't need to do that. We could go with lighter oil or whatever, but I'm probably not going to set it up that way. We can make the power I think that we need to make with boost. That's the nice thing about the turbo stuff. Any love for a 403 Olds? Yeah, I'd like to run one. A methanol blower should have tighter clearances than a petrol blower. It's been pretty good. It's in 70 Impala and very fun. Not sure the horsepower, but I enjoy it. That's good. I would do a 403 bit, really prefer a bored out 350. 67cc chambers versus 124. That is a lot. That's right. I didn't realize that they had that kind of swing. See? That's why I walked back my statement. If you could get the same power as a blower from NA Mods and price, would you? You can't, though. You can't make NA power like you can with a blower or a turbo, like you can with forced induction. Print up an owner's manual that boasts of the big block for a classic Pontiac. 99 Silverado 5.3 with 862 heads and a low buck truck cam with LT headers. Would you say it's worth it to put a Trailblazer SS and a 90 millimeter throttle body on? Also, with stock injectors will support this power level. No, they will not support that power level. They won't support the power level with a camshaft. The other stuff, I have videos up showing what the Trailblazer SS intake manifold is worth. It's worth about 15 or something. So it's worth a bit of power if you want that. LM53 using rebuilt 706 heads, new pistons, rods, ring gap, cam specs above with Holley mid-rise intake. What turbo recommended? I don't know what the camshaft was, but if you're doing 800 plus, you should get that G42. Curious if you have enough cam. The motor's a Dart 383, 9.5 to 1 compression, A4 enforcer heads, 5-angle valve job, probably flowing 280. What are you trying to do, Jason? Please remind me. Tonight, I finished the charge pipe on the E46. It wraps around the back of the oil pan up the other side. Man, I wish this thing wouldn't drop down so fast. Twin turbos. It's an inline 6 with a low mount turbo, so it actually makes the charge pipe really short. You have to bore a Pontiac 4530 over to use 67 chambers. Should I get a blow-through flex fuel carburetor? Fantasyland? I don't know that you can do a flex fuel thing. You can do EFI that's flex fuel, but I don't know that you have the adjustability in a flex fuel carburetor. You have an E85 carburetor and a blow-through carburetor, and you can get both of those. Taking the dog walk, you're officially allowed 1,200 horsepower on the street if your car weighs more than 4,000 pounds. And the thing about having the potential to have 1,200 horsepower, that doesn't mean that you make 1,200 horsepower. But if you want to make 800, you're right at the end of the smaller turbo. So you may as well get the bigger turbo. It's going to do it at a lower boost level. If you're on a street, drive a 700 horsepower turbo aluminum block. How do I keep it cool? What aluminum block are you using? I'd say a G42 has room for more power, and ball bearings can make it spool fast. Ball bearings are not going to do that. That's not going to affect spool very much, if at all. Remember, I'm the one doing the Turbo 305 and the factory roller block. At some point in the future, I'm going to build a 454. I found the solid roller cam for it, 290 at 50. Okay. Is that going to be an NA motor? Please tell me that it is, and it's not going to be a turbo motor. We just bought an older Dyno chassis dyno, and we're having trouble figuring out how to do accurate loaded pulls. It's very complicated. Dyno doesn't support the software anymore. What kind of big block would use that cam? 290 at 50 is like a real size cam, that's for sure. Looking at your Hellcat 525 plus fuel pumps for my 8.1. How plug and play is it on a GM 800? I don't know about the plug and play part. I've never taken one of those fuel pumps out. Almost all of the EFI fuel pumps that I've seen in those things, it's really easy to replace the fuel pump. And if you have to change the height of it or the hose line or whatever, that's not hard. That fuel pump is not designed for that, but we put it in a lot of stuff. What power and RPM would it make, and what heads, compression ratio, how many cubic inches, etc.? Is that question for me? I don't know what question that is. What do I need to run a low buck truck cam? Just the cam and springs. That's not true. I take that back. Cam and springs. You'll need bigger than stock injectors because it adds a lot of power, and stock truck injectors won't get you there. But we have inexpensive 50-pound flex fuel injectors, which are perfect for that. 303 Pontiac had 55 cc chambers. Low buck truck Norris, Chopper Cobra all have similar specs. Back in the day, Pontiac V8 before modern racing aluminum heads just focused as high compression ratio as possible. I was there when Evan ran his Ram Air 5-headed thing, and it did good. So I'm going to have him on. We'll do an interview with him. If I do a 5.3 with ported and polished 706 heads, 560 springs, low buck truck cam, and the CHI high ram, how much power do you think it'll make? I don't know, mid 400s. I don't know how good the head porting that you're doing is. Hydraulic roller cam. But the 274 is the duration, but that's got to be an advertised duration. So that's not it's going to be like 224. It's a single pattern cam. And what motor is that going in? Now I've forgotten about the question. Twin VSR 6766 T4s with Tech 1200 horsepower outer going a 74 square body. Okay. Thomas, if you want to get the injectors for down the road, then you should get the thousands. If you're getting injectors just for that 5.3, I would get the inexpensive flex fuel injectors. Leighton, you could take a look at the motors that I've done. I'm hoping that that's a dual pattern cam too, and not a single pattern cam. Take a look at the builds I have up where we ran 572s, 565s, 555s, 540s that had cams like that. Install the BFD cam. Do I need to upgrade injectors? Yes. How much power do you think a mechanical water pump and alternator take? I have an accessory video up, but I don't know, 10 or 12 probably. We knew about head porting in the 50s and 60s. I even had a flow bench in high school in 1982. Any suggestions on a roller cam conversion for a Gen 4 454? The comp ones are the only ones that we've ever run. L59 33-pound injectors. I don't know if they are or not. You can look that up on the on all cylinders thing. 33s would be enough if they are that. Excuse me, just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to answer my questions. Happy to help. I have a similar setup with a 383 stroker, 177 blower. Runs great. Probably makes 550 to 600 to the wheels on 7 pounds. It would have to be a really good 383 to make 600 to the tire with 7 pounds. Mechanical fan has a lot of loss. Yep. Shadow Ops, if that's what you have and you want to run that, yeah, that will work. And our poll, wow, our poll is split. Are you the guy that tries to squeak out an extra 2 psi out of your 871 blown small block? Yes, 50, no 50. We're ending right at 50-50. '91 compression, 205 heads, solid lift cam, 205 head. Have you gotten a chance to see if you have a small block Chevy hydraulic roller cam for my Turbo 305? I won't be able to see that until I go back down south. I don't have one here. At steady state, an electric water pump and alternator will use more power than a mechanical water pump at the same flow rates due to conversion losses. That's not true. That would only be the case if you had the same flow rate. And electric water pump is not going to flow the same as a mechanical water pump does. I'm on 25-pound units. We'll upgrade to L59 or G4 6-liter 50-pounders. Okay. I'm a big GM fan, but it would be cool to see more Coyote content. The 11 plus drivetrain can hold. Can we get some more Coyote combinations? I don't have any anymore. I did a whole bunch of Coyote testing way early on in 2010, 2011, but I haven't done any since then. And our injectors have the pigtail conversions too for them. Have you run a Lenati Blackmagic cam? I have not. Richard on a Gen 6 509. street engine looking for 7 to 800. Would you go centrifugal routes or twin turbos, automatic transmission? That you can do any of those. I mean, all of those will get you to that power level. Depends on what you like to look at and what you're trying to do with it. Do you need traction where a centrifugal might help you with that? Do you like the look of a big roots blower sticking up? Is it a pro street kind of car, or do you want it sticking up out of the hood so it looks cool when you're driving around at Cars and Coffee? Do you like the turbos are going to be more efficient? Elgin makes a 210, 215. If he doesn't, they also make a 230 single pattern. I wanted to do a 276 HR and a 305. Any plans to play with North Star engines? Not really. Anybody have any feedback on a mail order tuner for Thomas? What's the maximum horsepower one could make from an L7 all motor on pump gas on 85, changing pistons and heads? Was thinking diamond pistons and Frankenstein heads. I don't know. I don't know what the most that sort of stuff is. Thanks for responding on my Instagram about my nitrous question for the 406. Happy to help. I'll try this again. 74 C10 twin turbo 383, looking to make 800. Solid roller, 1200 horsepower EFI. Does the cam sound right? No, it doesn't. You don't for twin turbos, you don't need a cam that's that big. You could go with a lot smaller cam than that, and it would be a lot more responsive. You can use that cam. It's just not going to be that great. And I'm assuming some kind of single plane manifold, which is, I would put a smaller cam in it. But if you already have it, you can put 2 turbos on that and it will work. It's just, like I said, it's just way more camshaft than you need. Max lift cam 670. Can this support 800 horsepower with the G42? Yeah, I don't know where you're getting the cam specs from, but is it an eBay cam or a what? Who's doing that cam? Seems a little odd that they're the way that you're providing the specs seems to be that you're reading them off of somewhere online, and the way that they're giving them to you is suspect. So I want to know who does that cam. But yes, if you put a G42 turbo on that combination on any kind of 5.3 with any kind of cam like that, because the 274 is going to be about 220 to 224 degrees a duration at 50, I wouldn't recommend a single pattern cam, but that's what that is. I think you could pick a lot better camshaft than that. But yes, that turbo will easily make 800 horsepower. What are your thoughts on doing a lifter challenge, specifically the Johnson short travel lifters versus LS7 versus stock hydraulic rollers? There's not going to be any difference unless we do what we need to do to take advantage of short travel lifters. And those are what we put in like high RPM motors. Very few vet guys have chassis dyno numbers around 700 wheel horsepower with heads cam and intake LS7s. There's always a happy dyno numbers argument. Yeah, I wouldn't. That, like I said, I just worry when I see stuff presented in the way that I have seen stuff online from shady places. I just would not get those things. Yeah, Jason, you could make the power that you want looking to make 800 plus solid roller on a twin turbo. Yeah, I would go something small. I would go with something like a 224, 232, or 228, 230 at 50 on the intake. I would go much smaller than that. I would probably go 10 degrees on both sides smaller than that. Because the turbo is going to decide how much power you make. It's a Howard's cam. They do good stuff. I'm surprised that they're giving that. Single plane. I found single pattern cams work very well on Pontiac V8s. Yeah, to me, BNR, the like comments like that Pontiacs work with this. A single pattern cam always does what a single pattern cam does. It always does that. It does it on every motor. It does it on a Chevy, a Ford, a Dodge, a Pontiac, on all of them. It does something different than a dual pattern cam does, and that's actually fairly predictable. So a dual pattern cam will almost always make more peak power than a single pattern does, as long as you match the same intake duration. Any thoughts on an L92 for a cheaper alternative to an LS3? Is it cheaper than an LS3? If you go buy an L92 like online, is it less than an LS3? If it is, it has all the things that it needs. I don't think it has the same static compression that an LS3 does it? But other than that, you can put whatever camshaft you want in it. It has good heads on it. The intake manifolds are really make the same power if you want to use the stock intake manifold. What's your secret to having so much energy? I'd be exhausted trying to do live feeds, answering so many questions. I'm sore. I didn't even run today. I needed to, but I ran hills with the dogs yesterday, and I'm feeling a little bit. And I got sunburned too yesterday at the soccer games. I think I missed your answer on LS7 all motor. I don't know what the answer is. Will a root cell automatically give you more torque than stock, no matter what cam RPM range? A roots blower will add power. Will add a lot of power, no matter what cam you have. It will add power over not having a blower, if that's what you mean. Six-liter 243 or LS3 heads and boost. How big of a difference can you expect to see between the two involving high, low, and peak power? Well, I have videos up of 799 heads versus LS3 heads and stuff. We tested all of that. An LS3 head definitely makes more power. It flows 50 or more CFM more than a 243 head, so it always makes more power. It's a smaller chamber, so it's going to make the 243 head or 799 head is going to make maybe a little bit more low speed power. But if you have boost, you don't have to worry about that. If you're trying to make 800 horsepower and you put a G42 turbo on there, it'll make 800 horsepower. It'll make way more than that with either one of those heads. How do I keep a turbo LS cool on the street? I want to go to Mexico a few times and don't want to touch anything. Yeah, you should have an air-to-water intercooler. You should have an intercooler. That has nothing to do with keeping it cool, but you should have an air-to-water intercooler that keeps the charge cool. But are you talking about keeping the motor cool? You should have enough cooling for the power output. So that means a big radiator, plenty of airflow, a shroud, a fan, fenced in everything in the front so all the air goes through the radiator. You should have all that stuff. And on that note, it is time to go. And I'll see you guys all tomorrow.